Okay, so the last part of this Quincy QR-325 project is obviously moving it into service. There's a couple things I need to do here before I do that. Number one is I need to cut the airline loose and relocate the airline. Right now it just comes out of the tank, goes into a T, drops down to a ball valve, and it goes up to another ball valve through a couple 45 elbows, goes up to the top through a 90-degree elbow, shoots across, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to basically cut that airline probably about 6 inches below this heat duct, and then I'll relocate that once the compressor, the new Quincy's in place. The electrical, on the other hand, is the one that's a little bit of a concern, or that's going to be a little bit more tricky. Right now, if I left it where it was, the shroud and the flywheel would cover this one up, and it's not a good practice. So it does need to get moved over. So I'm going to move the service disconnect over to about here. I'm going to move these two boxes down here and move the disconnect over here. Now, because when this shop was wired, it was only planned for this 20 amp circuit that services this air compressor. But being that this Quincy now draws a few more amps, I need to have a heavier gauge wire. So I've got some 10 gauge stranded wire there. That's not a big deal. Got that all figured out. But what I want to do, instead of pulling the wire out of this conduit entirely and then running a fish tape line up through there, hooking up the new wire and pulling it back, I'm going to tie the old wire to the new wire, and then once I pull the old wire out, I'm going to pull the new wire in. Now, the tricky part about this whole thing is because I want to relocate this service disconnect over here, I need to be able to cut this conduit that's close to the wall here, the one on the bottom there, by doing that, I think what I'm going to do is just use a rotary tubing cutter, a compact tubing cutter, loosen up that clamp there, take a rotary tubing cutter and score it as deep as I can without actually cutting through it, to the point where I feel that I could probably break it with my hands. What that'll do then is it'll leave the internal wiring undisturbed, because in this process I'm also going to keep one of the existing wires in here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Right now this is just a standard 20 amp 220 volt system. Got the white wire, which is a 110 volt leg, and the black wire, which is a 110 volt leg. Now this probably should have been a red and black, but when it was wired, I don't know what they were thinking when this was done. But anyways, it kind of works out to my benefit, because I'm going to take that white wire, I'm going to take the other end that's in the circuit breaker box, and I'm going to hook that up to the neutral bar. I'm going to take this white wire on this end here and hook it up to the neutral bar on this service disconnect. That'll now give me a neutral circuit that I can tie the neutral half of this automatic tank drain that I got in, that I still want to tie into the bottom side of the contactor on the compressor, so that way the tank drain will only cycle when the compressor is running. So that's a good part. So I'm still going to pull the green ground and the black hot out, and I'm going to use those two wires to pull the three new 10 gauge wires up and in. So that's going to be the only tricky part, is be able to cut that conduit without cutting the wires. So I think I've got a plan, but it's going to take a little bit of patience, because if I cut through that, if I nick the wire in any which way, it's not going to be any good in that section. So I don't have any room to pull it back from the circuit breaker box here, so if I nick the wire, it's shot for the purpose I want to use it. So alright, I will keep you posted. Well, this is as far as I got with it over the weekend here. Got the compressor obviously in its place. Left a little bit of room here between this air duct and the electrical box and motor, so that way something minor like a capacitor fails or something, I can still get in here. So let's see here. Left about 8 inches on the back here so I can get the belt guard off. Got it wired. Some 30 amp fusers and some 10 gauge stranded wire. Got the tank drain on the back side here. This actually is a really good spot because no one will trip over it and step on it and break it. However, I don't have the electric drain on it. Long story short, when I redid this electrical, I was originally going to take this line here and cut it up there, and that turned out to be more than I really wanted to mess with. So what I did was I still used my idea of the rotary tubing cutter and cut through the conduit as far as I could, and then basically broke it off where it was scored, and worked really well. So I just put a junction box here. There's actually no connectors in here. It's just a couple loops of wires that way in case I ever need to move this over, whichever. I got a little extra room there. So but basically I was originally going to keep the one white 12 gauge wire in here for a neutral, and turns out to be that I wasn't going to have enough room, shy of actually having to use a fish tape to pull it separately. And 1/2-inch conduit, it really wasn't a whole lot of room, because by the time I had the wires wrapped together and the old to the new, I had basically laid them side by side and wrapped them together with electrical tape and used the wires, the old wires, to pull the new ones in. And it just was more messing around than I really wanted to do. If it was if it was going to be simpler than I expected, I would have done it, but actually it just didn't work the way I wanted it to. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to keep the ball valve on the bottom, but I'm going to see if I can't exchange the 110 volt tank drain for a 220, and then go back to my original idea of tying it to the bottom side of the contactor. Because I really, to do it properly, really need to have a neutral running back to the neutral and ground bar in the circuit breaker box. So anyways, it is wired. It is not bolted to the floor yet. I need to get some bolts, and then the plumbing's not done yet. I cut the plumbing off on top there, so I'm just going to come over down somewhere along here, and then I have a air regulator and water separator here that I'm probably going to mount on the wall here, and then use a high pressure flex hose from here to the ball valve. So this is a setup. Both pieces came off of eBay. This is a Norgren 1/2-inch water separator filter with a manual drain, and I paid I think $38 for this. And then this is also a Norgren 1/2-inch pressure regulator as well. I think I paid like $44 off eBay. Both of them are brand new, so I just tied them together with a 1/2-inch short hex nipple. So I'm probably going to mount it on the wall here, and then, like I said, run a high pressure flex hose from the water separator to the ball valve. So I'm told that I really want to go through the water separator first, so that's what I'm going to do. And the next step is, like I said, basically hook the plumbing up and bolt it to the floor, and this thing is 100% done. So it is running. I'll start it up here for you. Got the ball valve on the side open yet. I just was letting the pipe dope set up overnight. So other than that, it is 95% there, so just got to get the airline hooked up there, as I said earlier, and bolt it to the floor, and it should be good to go. So other than that, I will keep you posted on the updates. Do you hear that? Let me get a little closer. That's quiet. That's the new Quincy QR, or the new old used Quincy QR-325 pumping up right now. I've got it wired obviously, and it's fast, and I'm still working on the plumbing. I'm mounting the regulators right now, but I just it was killing me. Wanted to know how quiet this was going to be over in this side of the shop, and it's quiet. Just got done bolting it to the floor. I've got the bolts in and they're not even snug, so just enough to keep it from walking. Currently at about 130, almost 35 psi. And here's where I'm at with the plumbing so far. Need to remove this nipple and replace it with the galvanized. Got my water separator and pressure regulator here. I'm going to use a high pressure hydraulic hose to go from here to here. Then I need to tie this together, run a couple of elbows. So wow. So we'll let that pump up. Kicks out about 160, so yeah, I'm just amazed at how quiet that is. It's just unbelievable compared to my old Campbell Hausfeld, but then again, they're not even the same quality, so it shut off already. I wonder, that didn't make 160 psi. No, breaker didn't kick out, so I need to go and see if it actually did kick out or if it blew a fuse. The fuses I had were used at the moment, so not sure if it actually kicked out because it hit its pressure. Well, maybe it did. Yeah, it did. Wow. So that's good. I'm going to pull the switch on it. You're good. So I'm just going to, I don't know if you heard me earlier, I'm going to replace this nipple with a piece of galvanized. And then my brother is actually going to make up a high pressure hydraulic hose to go from here to here. And I'm actually, this isn't set in place by any means. I'm actually going to probably lower it down a little bit. Might be over here a little bit, but I won't know that until he brings that hose and I can see how flexible it is. So it's going to have a 90 over here and a 90 here. So a 90 male here and a 90 female to attach to here. So and we'll sweat and solder that in, and then I'll finish attaching those two pipes together, and this compressor is 100% in complete operation. So it's coming along.